So a good example is, as I mentioned before, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. So that, again, was like the first national war memorial. The guy that really spurred the effort, his name was Jan Scruggs, and he was a Vietnam veteran himself. He had come home from the war, and he had seen how terribly these vets were treated, that they were told, don't talk about the war, don't admit you fought, don't wear your uniform. Obviously, that bothered him. And he also saw a lot of his colleagues or his compatriots suffering from PTSD. So he became kind of an advocate for the rights of veterans, and he is the one who started garnering support to build a Vietnam Veterans Memorial. Now, that process was particularly tumultuous because most memorials, after they have that initiation, after the legislation is passed, after the site is selected, then they hold a design contest, which actually I think is one of the most amazing things about Washington, D.C., is that almost all of our famous buildings, our monuments, our memorials were done by independent international competition, anonymous competition. So they held the competition, and the design that won ended up being done by this 21-year-old girl, an undergrad student at Yale, architecture student named Maya Lin. And she apparently had only done it as a class project and then on a whim submitted it, and she got a B on her project. But she won this international contest. And P.S., her professor also submitted an entry, and it didn't make it past the first round. So
that's quite an accomplishment for this young woman.
Yeah.
And I imagine as a student of architecture yourself, you could imagine that to be able to say that you won an entire competition besting professional architects from all around the world is quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, this woman, she had no idea that, this could ever happen. But once she won and once her design became public, a lot of vets actually didn't like it. And there was a lot of controversy. She caught all kinds of flack. She had hate mail and death threats. And it was an extremely tumultuous time, obviously, in American history. But it was interesting to learn about this process. But actually, to their credit, the approval board stuck more or less to her design. One of the main criticisms was that the wall memorializes those that were killed or missing, but it doesn't address those that fought and survived. And so they ended up adding this other statue called the Three Servicemen statue to kind of placate the people who were upset about that. And initially they were going to place it right at the top of the Vietnam Wall. So you've been obviously to the wall, right, right where the two sides come together. And Maya Lin, she was furious at the idea. She said it would compromise her design, and they actually respected what she wanted, and they placed it kind of to the side, so the statues are looking over at the wall. So they did allow this woman, this 21-year-old woman, to really have a say in the execution of her own design.
So she won the competition fair and square.
Yep.
Her design was judged anonymously with no name on it or anything like that. Has she spoken out and said, if it hadn't been an anonymous competition, does she feel like she would have had a chance? Would her age or anything like that have impacted the process?
Yeah, she's addressed that before. I mean, it's definitely a question. Another reason that she caught flack was unfortunately because she was Asian American. She's Chinese American. And so I'm sure she has questioned, and she said in interviews, questioned the idea if she would have won or not, being a young Asian American woman, 3 strikes, as far as not qualifying.
So what's in it for this designer? I mean, they have a design competition, and 1,400 people for the Vietnam Memorial competition entered the competition. Obviously, if you win, you have very significant bragging rights. I mean, you can say that you are a very accomplished
She peaked
designer.
early.
And so what else is in it for them? Is there a salary? Is there a prize? Or is it all for recognition and the fact that you're serving your country in a way by designing a memorial that's going to get built on the National Mall?
It depends on the design. Certainly the glory and the prestige is probably the biggest, especially for architects, because we all eat that stuff up. But there was also a $20,000 prize, at least associated with the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. It's different, though, in every competition, because the sponsor, as they call it, the people who are funding the competition, they decide what the winner will get. Sometimes there's no money at all, and it's all about the glory.
Hey, thanks for listening to this podcast highlight. This is just a small piece of the entire episode. So if you want to hear the whole thing, you can search for Trip Hacks DC in your favorite podcast app, or head on over to triphacksdc.com/podcast. If you like getting these clips, make sure to subscribe to this channel by clicking or tapping on the Trip Hacks DC logo, which is popping up right now at the bottom of the screen. If you want to watch another clip, go ahead and click or tap up here. Or for Washington, D.C. tips and hacks videos from the main channel, go ahead and click or tap right down here. Enjoy your trip!